The galactic stage. In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, countless civilizations had risen and fallen over billions of years. But for the past millennium, one empire had reigned supreme: the Zarkai Dominion. Their sleek biomechanical ships prowled the stars, subjugating world after world with ruthless efficiency. The Zarkai, with their towering frames and iridescent exoskeletons, saw themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, destined to rule over all lesser species. Far from the glittering center of Zarkai power, on the outer spiral arm of the galaxy, a blue-green world spun quietly around its yellow star. Earth, home to humanity, had only recently taken its first tentative steps into interstellar space. For centuries, humans had dreamed of the stars, imagining grand adventures and peaceful meetings with alien civilizations. The reality had been far harsher. Admiral Elena Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, Earth's most advanced warship, as it patrolled the edges of human-controlled space. At 45, Elena's face bore the lines of someone who had seen too much combat and lost too many friends. Her dark eyes scanned the holographic displays, searching for any sign of Zarkai incursion. "Status report," she barked, her voice clipped and professional. Lieutenant Raj Patel, a young officer with a keen mind for tactics, responded promptly. "All systems nominal, Admiral. No sign of Zarkai activity in this sector." "But," he hesitated. "Spit it out, Lieutenant," Elena said, turning to face him. Raj swallowed hard. "We've received word from Outpost Sigma. The colony on Proxima Centauri B has gone dark. No communication for the past 48 hours. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Everyone knew what that likely meant. The Zarkai had struck again, continuing their relentless push into human territory. Elena's jaw clenched as she thought of the thousands of colonists on Proxima Centauri B, men, women, and children who had risked everything for a fresh start on a new world, now facing enslavement or worse at the hands of the alien conquerors. "Set course for Proxima Centauri," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil in her heart. "And send word to Earth Command. They need to know the Zarkai are getting bolder." As the Defiant's engines hummed to life, propelling the ship towards its grim destination, Elena retreated to her quarters. She needed a moment alone to gather her thoughts and steel herself for what lay ahead. The small room was sparse, with only a few personal touches: a faded photograph of her family back on Earth, and a battered copy of Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Elena picked up the book, running her fingers over its worn cover. How many times had she pored over its pages, searching for some insight that might give humanity an edge against the technologically superior Zarkai? So far, it hadn't been enough. Humanity was losing this war, slowly but surely being pushed back towards Earth. A chime from her computer terminal interrupted her thoughts. It was a priority message from Earth Command, encrypted at the highest level. Elena's heart raced as she entered her access codes. As the message decrypted, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Project Prometheus is ready," the message read. "Return to Earth immediately for briefing and deployment." Elena sat back, her mind reeling. Project Prometheus, the top-secret initiative that had consumed vast resources and the brightest minds Earth had to offer. Could it truly be ready? And would it be enough to turn the tide against the Zarkai? Meanwhile, light years away, Supreme Overlord Zix Era of the Zarkai Dominion lounged on his crystalline throne aboard the massive flagship, the Eternal Dominance. His segmented body, nearly 4 meters long, gleamed with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with his every movement. Around him, lesser Zarkai scurried about, attending to the business of running an interstellar empire. "Report on the human expansion," Zix Era commanded, his multifaceted eyes fixed on a holographic display of the galaxy. High Commander Vexlor, head of the Zarkai military, stepped forward. The assault on their Proxima Centauri colony was a complete success. Eternal One, our forces encountered minimal resistance. The humans continue to be no match for our superior technology and tactics. Zixera's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Excellent. These humans have proven to be more resilient than most species we've encountered, but they will fall like all the others. There is one curious development, eternal one, Vexlor added, a note of hesitation in his voice. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual energy signatures emanating from the human homeworld. It could be nothing. But you thought it worth mentioning, Zixera finished, his tone sharpening. You were right to do so, Vexlor. We must not underestimate these humans, no matter how primitive they may seem. Increase surveillance on their home system. If they are developing some new weapon, I want to know about it immediately. As the Eternal Dominance continued its stately progress through Zarkai-controlled space, neither Zixera nor any of his subordinates could have imagined the desperation driving humanity's last-ditch efforts. They couldn't conceive of a species willing to risk everything to push the boundaries of science and ethics in a bid for survival. Back on Earth, in a top-secret facility buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Samantha Reeves stood before a collection of the world's most brilliant minds. The cavernous room hummed with barely contained energy, both from the massive machines lining the walls and from the tension radiating off the assembled scientists and military personnel. Ladies and gentlemen, Samantha began, her voice echoing in the chamber. What you're about to see represents humanity's last, best hope against the Zarkai threat. For years, we've struggled to match their technology through conventional means. Today, we take an unconventional leap. With a gesture, Samantha activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed a sleek, almost organic-looking ship design, unlike anything Earth had produced before. This is the culmination of Project Prometheus, Samantha continued, a fusion of human ingenuity and recovered Zarkai technology. But more than that, it represents a fundamental shift in how we approach space combat. The hologram zoomed in, revealing intricate details of the ship's systems. As Samantha explained the revolutionary propulsion system, the adaptive shielding, and the neural interface that would allow a pilot to control the ship as if it were an extension of their own body, murmurs of amazement rippled through the crowd. But the true breakthrough, Samantha said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, is this. The hologram shifted, focusing on what appeared to be the ship's core. It pulsed with an otherworldly energy, simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. We call it the Nexus Drive. It allows the ship to manipulate the very fabric of space-time itself. In theory, it can create localized wormholes, generate temporal distortions, even harness the energy of collapsing stars. A stunned silence fell over the room. The implications were staggering and frightening. One older general stepped forward, his face etched with concern. "Dr. Reeves," he said gravely, "what you're proposing, it's beyond anything we've ever attempted. The risks are considerable." Samantha finished for him. "Yes, General, I'm well aware. But consider the alternative. The Zarkai are at our doorstep. Conventional warfare has failed us. It's time to change the rules of the game." As the assembled leaders debated the merits and dangers of Project Prometheus, none of them noticed the lone figure slipping out of the room. In a secluded corridor, the man pulled out a communicator unlike any human design. His features shimmered and distorted, revealing the iridescent exoskeleton of a Zarkai spy. "High Command," the spy whispered, "the humans have developed something unprecedented. We may have underestimated them. Recommend immediate." A sharp crack echoed through the corridor, and the spy crumpled to the ground. Behind him stood Alina Chen, her sidearm still raised and smoking. "I thought we might have a rat," she said coldly, addressing the now-dead spy. "Guess the Zarkai aren't as invincible as they think." As alarms began to blare throughout the facility, Alina knew that events were accelerating faster than anyone had anticipated. The element of surprise was lost. Now it would be a race against time to deploy Project Prometheus. Before the Zarkai could muster their full might against Earth, the stage was set. Humanity's desperate gamble was about to unfold with the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy hanging in the balance. The Zarkay believed victory was within their grasp, but they were about to learn a painful lesson. Never underestimate the ingenuity, determination, and sheer audacity of the human spirit when pushed to its limits. As the first part of our story concludes, the pieces are in place for an epic confrontation. Humanity, armed with its revolutionary new technology, prepares to make its stand against the seemingly invincible Zarkay dominion. The galaxy holds its breath, unaware that the balance of power is about to shift dramatically. Unexpected resistance. The vast emptiness of space erupted into chaos as the Zarkay fleet emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of the Sol system. Hundreds of biomechanical ships, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly iridescence, filled the void. At the center of this armada, the Eternal Dominance loomed like a malevolent leviathan, dwarfing even the largest human orbital stations. Supreme Overlord Zixera's multifaceted eyes gleamed with anticipation as he surveyed the holographic representation of the human home system. At last, he chittered, mandibles clacking in satisfaction. The final stronghold of these troublesome humans. Today, we end their resistance and claim this world for the glory of the Zarkay dominion. High Commander Vexlor, standing rigidly at attention, couldn't entirely mask the concern in his voice. Eternal One, our long-range scans are detecting unusual energy signatures throughout the system. The humans appear to have significantly bolstered their defenses since our last incursion. Zixera's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with irritation. It matters not. Their primitive technology is no match for the might of our fleet. Begin the assault. I want their orbital defenses neutralized within the hour. As the Zarkay ships surged forward, humanity's response was swift and unexpected. Instead of the disorganized panic the aliens had come to expect, they were met with a coordinated defense that caught them off guard. Admiral Elena Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, her face a mask of determination. Around her, crews worked with practiced efficiency, their movements precise despite the looming threat. "Status report," she barked. Lieutenant Raj Patel's fingers danced across his console. "Zarkay fleet has entered the system. Admiral, counting over 500 ships, including their flagship. Our outer defense platforms are engaging now." Elena nodded grimly. "And Project Prometheus. The prototypes are in position, awaiting your command." A tense silence fell over the bridge. Everything hinged on this moment. Years of secret development, countless lives lost in the struggle against the Zarkay. It all came down to this. "Initiate Operation Firestorm," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of command. "Let's show these bastards what humanity is capable of." Across the Sol system, hidden installations sprang to life. Massive energy signatures blossomed on Zarkay sensors, confusing their targeting systems. Before the alien fleet could react, space itself seemed to twist and warp. Aboard the Eternal Dominance, alarms blared as reality buckled around them. "What trickery is this?" Zixera roared, his segmented body writhing in agitation. Vexlor struggled to make sense of the sensor readings. "Impossible. The humans are generating localized space-time distortions. Our ships are being pulled off course, weapon systems failing to lock on targets." As the Zarkay fleet floundered, unable to maintain formation, humanity unveiled its trump card. From concealed hangars on Mars, the moons of Jupiter, and deep space stations, a new class of ship emerged. Sleek, almost organic in design, they moved with a fluidity that defied conventional physics. At the helm of the lead ship, callsign Phoenix, sat Captain Maya Hernandez. Her eyes were closed, her body connected to her vessel through a neural interface, more advanced than anything humanity had previously achieved. As Zarkay energy weapons lashed out, the Phoenix danced between the beams, retaliating with pinpoint accuracy. "This is Phoenix." Maya's voice crackled over the comm. "Prometheus Squadron, engage at will. Remember your training. Feel the ship as an extension of yourself. We are the firewall between Earth and annihilation. Let's send these squid-faced bastards packing." What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever witnessed. The Prometheus ships, though vastly outnumbered, wielded technology that the Zarkai couldn't comprehend. They phased in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemy vessels to unleash devastating attacks before vanishing again. Miniature singularities blossomed in the void, swallowing Zarkai ships whole. Elena watched the battle unfold with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The Prometheus ships were performing beyond their wildest expectations, but the Zarkai still held a significant numerical advantage. "We need to press our advantage," she muttered. "Raj, signal the Phoenix. Tell Captain Hernandez it's time to test the Nexus drive's full capabilities." Aboard the Phoenix, Maya received the order with a grim smile. "Understood, Admiral. Initiating Nexus drive sequence. All hands, brace for temporal displacement." The Phoenix's core pulsed with otherworldly energy. For a moment, it seemed as if the ship was in multiple places simultaneously, after images stretching across the battlefield. Then, with a flash that momentarily outshone the sun, it vanished. Zixera, watching the battle turn against his forces, felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Where did that ship go? Find it. Now. His answer came in the form of a massive energy surge directly behind the Eternal Dominance. The Phoenix materialized, its weapons already firing. Precision strikes crippled the Zarkai flagship's main engines and weapons array. "This is impossible," Zixera screeched, his composure finally shattering. No primitive species could develop such technology. "Vexlor, get us out of here. Recall all ships. We must regroup and reassess." As the Zarkai fleet began a hasty retreat, leaving behind the wreckage of hundreds of their ships, a cheer went up across human communication channels. For the first time since the war began, humanity had scored a decisive victory against their seemingly invincible foe. Back on the Defiant, Alina allowed herself a small smile. "Well done, everyone. But this is just the beginning. The Zarkai will be back, and next time they'll be prepared for our new capabilities." Raj approached her, his face a mix of elation and concern. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from across the system. The Prometheus ships, some of them are experiencing unexpected side effects from using the Nexus drive. Temporal anomalies, crew experiencing time dilation." Alina's smile faded. The price of victory was already becoming apparent. Have Dr. Reeves and her team begin full diagnostics immediately. We need to understand these effects before our next engagement. As the Sol system settled into an uneasy calm, news of humanity's victory spread like wildfire. On Earth and its colonies, people dared to hope for the first time in years. In the far reaches of the galaxy, subjugated species whispered of the impossible, a force that could stand against the Zarkai dominion. But in the depths of space, aboard the limping Eternal Dominance, Supreme Overlord Zixera seethed with rage and humiliation. "This is not over," he hissed to his cowering subordinates. "The humans have revealed their hand. Now we shall bring the full might of the Dominion to bear. We will scour their worlds clean of life, and I will personally oversee the extinction of their species." As the Zarkai fleet retreated into the darkness between stars, the stage was set for a conflict that would reshape the galaxy. Humanity had won its first major victory, but the war was far from over. The true test of their resolve, ingenuity, and the double-edged sword of their new technology was yet to come. The battle for Earth had been won, but the struggle for the future of the galaxy was just beginning. The turning point. In the months following humanity's unexpected victory in the Sol system, an uneasy quiet settled over the galaxy. The Zarkai Dominion, for the first time in centuries, found itself on the defensive. Worlds that had long cowered under the iron fist of alien rule began to whisper of resistance, emboldened by the knowledge that the invincible Armada had finally been bloodied. On Earth, the mood was one of cautious optimism tinged with grim determination. In the sprawling underground complex that served as humanity's military nerve center, Admiral Elena Chen pored over holographic star charts, analyzing potential Zarkai movements. "They're regrouping," she muttered, more to herself than to the officers around her. "Pulling back from outlying systems, concentrating their forces. But where will they strike next?" Dr. Samantha Reeves, the brilliant mind behind Project Prometheus, stepped forward. Dark circles under her eyes betrayed countless sleepless nights spent refining the revolutionary technology that had turned the tide of war. "Admiral," she began, her voice tight with concern, "we need to discuss the Nexus Drive. The temporal anomalies we've been observing in our pilots. They're getting worse." Elena's jaw clenched. She'd seen the reports. Prometheus pilots experiencing time differently, some aging years in what felt like weeks, others barely aging at all. The physical toll was mounting, and the psychological impact was becoming harder to ignore. "What are our options, Doctor?" Elena asked, already dreading the answer. Samantha sighed heavily. "We can limit the use of the drive, reduce the strain on our pilots. But that would mean giving up our primary advantage against the Zarkai. Or what? Or we push forward, maximize our use of the technology while we still can. But I can't guarantee what will happen to our pilots in the long term. We're in uncharted territory here." "Admiral." The weight of command had never felt heavier on Elena's shoulders. She was about to respond when alarms blared throughout the complex. Lieutenant Raj Patel's voice crackled over the intercom, urgent and strained. "Admiral, to the command center. We're detecting massive Zarkai fleet movements. They're on the move, and it's big." As Elena and Samantha rushed to the command center, the holographic displays came to life, showing a sea of red indicators swarming across the galaxy map. The Zarkai had emerged from hiding, and they were heading straight for Earth's most vulnerable colony worlds. "They're not going for Earth," Elena realized aloud. "They're trying to cut us off, isolate us from our resources and allies." Supreme Overlord Zixera, his iridescent exoskeleton gleaming in the low light of the Eternal Dominance's bridge, watched with savage satisfaction as his rebuilt fleet surged forward. The humiliation of their defeat still burned, driving him to even greater heights of cruelty and tactical brilliance. "Let the humans cower behind their new technology," he chittered to his commanders. "We will strip away everything they hold dear, world by world, until they break. And then, when they are at their weakest, we will crush their homeworld beneath our heel." The Zarkai assault was ruthless and precise. Colony after colony fell, unable to withstand the overwhelming force brought against them. Millions of humans found themselves under alien occupation, facing a future of enslavement or worse. Back on Earth, Elena made the hardest decision of her career. "Deploy all available Prometheus ships," she ordered, her voice heavy with the knowledge of what she was asking. "Tell the pilots. Tell them I'm sorry, but we need them to push the Nexus drives to their limits. The fate of our species hangs in the balance." What followed was a series of battles that would be spoken of in hushed tones for generations to come. The Prometheus fleet, though small in number, struck with the fury of a dying star. They appeared seemingly out of nowhere, wreaking havoc on Zarkai supply lines and Liberation-occupied worlds, before vanishing again into the depths of space. Captain Maya Hernandez, at the helm of the Phoenix, led the charge. With each engagement, she could feel the Nexus drive changing her, altering her perception of time and space. But she pushed on, driven by a determination to save her people, no matter the personal cost. In a pivotal battle over the skies of New Eden, humanity's largest off-world colony, Maya made a decision that would alter the course of the war. As a massive Zarkai fleet bore down on the defenseless planet, she pushed the Phoenix's Nexus drive beyond all safety limits. "Phoenix to all ships," she broadcast, her voice strained but resolute. "I'm going to attempt to create a temporal bubble around the enemy fleet. If this works, it should buy our ground forces time to evacuate the civilians. If it doesn't, it's been an honor serving with you all." Before anyone could protest, Maya activated the drive. Space itself seemed to scream as a massive distortion enveloped the Zarkai Armada. Time slowed to a crawl within the bubble, trapping the alien ships in a moment stretched nearly to infinity. The maneuver worked, but at a terrible cost. When the Phoenix emerged from the distortion, Maya was barely recognizable. She had aged decades in minutes, her body ravaged by the temporal forces she had unleashed. As news of Maya's sacrifice spread, a fire was lit in the hearts of humans across the galaxy. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, willing to risk everything to pilot the Prometheus ships. The tide of war began to turn, slowly but surely, as humanity's forces struck back with renewed vigor. Zixera, faced with mounting losses and unrest among his own people, grew increasingly desperate. "We underestimated these humans," he raged to his advisors. "Their technology, their resolve. They are unlike any species we have encountered. We must end this now before our empire crumbles from within." In a bold and reckless move, the Supreme Overlord ordered the entirety of the Zarkai fleet to converge on Earth. It would be all or nothing, a final, massive assault to break the human spirit once and for all. As the largest armada the galaxy had ever seen approach the Sol system, humanity prepared for its greatest test. The Prometheus fleet, though battered and with many of its pilots changed beyond recognition by the ravages of the Nexus drive, stood ready to defend their homeworld. Admiral Elena Chen, her face lined with the strain of command, addressed the combined forces of Earth and its allies. "This is the moment that will define our species," she declared, her voice carrying across countless ships and stations. "Win or lose, after this day, the galaxy will never be the same. For Earth, for our future, for every being that has suffered under Zarkai oppression, we fight." As the two fleets clashed in the space around Earth, the fate of not just humanity, but of countless worlds across the galaxy, hung in the balance. The turning point had arrived, and with it, the promise of either a new dawn or eternal darkness for all sentient life. The battle that would decide the future of the galaxy was about to begin, with neither side fully understanding the cosmic forces they had unleashed in their desperate struggle for survival. Ripples across the stars. The void around Earth erupted into a dazzling spectacle of destruction as the combined human fleet clashed with the full might of the Zarkai Armada. Energy beams lanced across space, while swarms of fighters darted between capital ships like angry insects. At the heart of the maelstrom, the Prometheus ships danced an impossible ballet, phasing in and out of reality to strike at the enemy's weak points. Admiral Elena Chen, her face illuminated by the holographic displays aboard the UES Defiant, watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and dread. "Status report," she barked, her eyes never leaving the tactical overlay. Lieutenant Raj Patel's voice was strained but steady. "The Zarkai are pushing hard towards our inner defense line, Admiral. But our Prometheus ships are keeping them off balance. We're holding, for now." Elena nodded grimly. "And the Nexus drive effects on our pilots?" There was a moment of hesitation before Raj replied. "It's accelerating, ma'am. We're getting reports of extreme temporal displacement. Some pilots are experiencing years in the span of minutes." The weight of command had never felt heavier. Elena knew she was asking the impossible of her people, sacrificing them in the most profound way imaginable. But the alternative, the enslavement or extinction of humanity, was unthinkable. Aboard the Eternal Dominance, Supreme Overlord Zixera chittered in frustration as he watched his carefully laid plans unravel. The humans were putting up far more resistance than he had anticipated, their accursed Prometheus ships wreaking havoc on his fleet's formation. "Push forward," he screeched, his bioluminescent patterns flashing erratically. "Overwhelm them with our numbers. I want that planet reduced to ash." But even as he gave the order, Zixera felt a creeping doubt. For the first time in his long life, he faced an enemy that didn't cower before the might of the Zarkai Dominion. An enemy that, against all odds, seemed to be holding its own. As the battle raged on, Its effects began to ripple outward across the galaxy. On distant worlds long subjugated by the Zarkai, news of the conflict spread like wildfire. Species that had known nothing but oppression for generations dared to hope, watching breathlessly as humanity stood against their tormentors. On the desert world of Kalthor, reptilian beings gathered around crude communication devices, their scaled fingers trembling as they tuned into forbidden frequencies. The voice that crackled through was faint, but filled with an emotion they had almost forgotten: defiance. Human forces continuing to hold the line against the Zarkai assault. Reports indicate significant losses on both sides, but Earth's defenses remain intact. The galaxy watches as, in the crystal caves of Lumina, bioluminescent creatures that had long ago resigned themselves to eternal servitude felt a stirring in their collective consciousness. The psychic echoes of the battle reached across light years, carrying with it a message: resistance was possible. Even in the heart of Zarkai-controlled space, on worlds where the alien conquerors had ruled unopposed for centuries, there were whispers of change. Slaves and servants exchanged furtive glances, their masters too preoccupied with the distant conflict to notice the seeds of rebellion taking root. Back in Earth orbit, the battle had reached a fever pitch. The space around the planet was littered with debris from both fleets, a graveyard of metal and dreams. But still, humanity fought on. Captain Alexei Volkov, one of the few remaining original Prometheus pilots, felt time slipping away from him as he pushed his ship to its limits. His hair had gone white, his skin wrinkled and spotted with age, but his eyes burned with an inner fire. "This is Volkov," he rasped into the comm. "I'm detecting a weak point in the enemy's rear flank, requesting permission to attempt a temporal pincer movement." Alina's voice came back, tight with concern. "Denied, Captain. The strain on your body." "With all due respect, Admiral," Alexei interrupted, a smile in his aged voice. "I'm already living on borrowed time. Let me make it count." There was a moment of silence before Alina replied, her voice heavy with emotion. "Permission granted, Captain. Godspeed." What followed would be spoken of in legend for generations to come. Alexei's ship, the Cronus, split into multiple temporal echoes, each version of the vessel attacking the Zarkai fleet from a different point in time simultaneously. The effect was devastating, tearing a hole in the alien formation and sowing chaos in their ranks. But the cost was beyond measure. When the Cronus reappeared, Alexei was gone, lost to the currents of time itself, his sacrifice etched into the very fabric of space-time. The tide of battle began to turn. Inspired by Alexei's heroism, the human fleet fought with renewed vigor. The Zarkai, faced with an enemy that refused to break, began to falter. In a desperate bid to salvage victory, Zix Era ordered the Eternal Dominants to spearhead a final assault on Earth itself. "If we cannot have this world," he raged, "then we shall render it uninhabitable." As the massive Zarkai flagship bore down on the planet, Alina made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. "All ships," she broadcast on an open channel, her voice reaching every human vessel, and even the Zarkai fleet. "This ends now. Initiate Operation Ouroboros." Across the battlefield, the remaining Prometheus ships began to move in perfect synchronization. They formed a ring around the Eternal Dominants, their nexus drives pulsing with energy. "What are they doing?" Zix Era demanded, a note of fear creeping into his voice for the first time. The answer came in the form of a blinding flash of light. The Prometheus ships had created a massive temporal loop, trapping the Eternal Dominants in a bubble where time folded back on itself. Zix Era and his crew found themselves reliving the same moments over and over, unable to escape or affect the outside world. With their supreme leader effectively removed from the battle, the Zarkai fleet fell into disarray. Ship after ship either surrendered or fled, their unbreakable will finally shattered. As the realization of victory began to sink in, cheers erupted across the human fleet, but Alina felt no joy, only a profound sense of the cost they had paid. The Prometheus pilots who had enacted Operation Ouroboros were gone, lost to the same temporal prison they had created for their enemy. In the days that followed, as the dust of battle settled and the full extent of what had transpired became clear, the galaxy found itself irrevocably changed. The Zarkai Dominion, once thought invincible, lay in ruins. Countless worlds tasted freedom for the first time in living memory. But for humanity, victory was bittersweet. The price of their triumph was etched in time itself, paid for with the lives and sacrifices of those who had dared to challenge the impossible. As news of Earth's victory spread to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, a new era dawned. The ripples of this conflict would continue to shape the destiny of countless species for generations to come. The balance of power had shifted, and with it, the very nature of existence in a universe where time itself could be wielded as a weapon. The battle was over, but the consequences of humanity's stand against tyranny were only beginning to unfold. A new dawn. The galactic landscape had been irrevocably altered in the wake of humanity's victory over the Zarkai Dominion. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, a new era began to take shape, one filled with both promise and peril. Admiral Elena Chen stood before the United Earth Council, her uniform crisp, but her shoulders bearing the invisible weight of command. The chamber was packed, with representatives from every human colony and newly liberated alien worlds in attendance. "The war is over," Elena began, her voice carrying across the hushed room. "But our challenges have only just begun. The power we wielded to achieve victory, the Nexus Drive, and its manipulation of space-time, has left scars not just on our brave pilots, but on the very fabric of our universe." Holographic displays flickered to life, showing regions of space where reality had become unstable. Temporal anomalies, rifts in space-time, areas where the laws of physics seemed to break down entirely. Dr. Samantha Reeves stepped forward, her face lined with exhaustion and the burden of her creations. "We've detected chronal fractures spreading from the sites of our major engagements," she explained. "Time in these regions flows differently, sometimes backwards, sometimes not at all. We've already lost research teams trying to study the phenomena." A murmur of concern rippled through the assembly. An Arcturian delegate, his crystalline form shimmering with anxiety, spoke up. "What of the Zarkai leadership, the Eternal Dominance, and its crew?" Elena's expression hardened. "Still trapped in the temporal prison we created. We're working on a way to safely extract them, to face justice for their crimes. But I won't sacrifice more lives in the attempt." As the Council debated the implications of their victory and the challenges that lay ahead, similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On worlds both familiar and alien, species that had only known oppression for generations grappled with their newfound freedom. On Kelthor, the reptilian beings who had once huddled around forbidden transmissions now stood tall, working alongside human engineers to rebuild their shattered infrastructure. The desert world buzzed with activity as ships from a dozen species brought aid and expertise. In the crystal caves of Lumina, the bioluminescent inhabitants communed with human scientists, their combined knowledge pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. The psychic echoes of the final battle had awakened latent abilities in their kind, and together they sought to understand the new galactic order. Even on former Zarkai throne worlds, change was in the air. The towering spires that had once housed their oppressors now stood empty, repurposed as centers of learning and cultural exchange. Former slaves walked freely, their eyes bright with possibility. But not all was peaceful in the post-war galaxy. Pockets of Zarkai resistance remained, rallying around hardline commanders who refused to accept defeat. Pirate fleets and opportunistic warlords sought to carve out territories in the power vacuum left by the Dominion's fall. And there were whispers, too, of something darker. In the depths of space, in regions made unstable by the war, strange phenomena were reported. Ships vanishing without a trace, crews returning change or not returning at all. Some spoke of glimpses of impossible things, future technologies, past events playing out again. even alternate realities bleeding through the weakened barriers of space-time. Back on Earth, in a secure facility deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Maya Hernandez opened her eyes for the first time in months. The hero of New Eden, whose sacrifice had turned the tide of war, had been recovered from the temporal distortion she had created. But the Maya that awoke was change, her mind touching realities beyond human comprehension. "I saw it all," she whispered to the medical team gathered around her. "Past, present, future, they're all happening at once. The Nexus Drive, it didn't just let us travel through space. It opened doors we were never meant to open." As news of Maya's awakening spread, it sparked both hope and fear. Hope that her insights could help stabilize the fractures in spacetime. Fear of what other consequences their actions might have unleashed. In orbit above Earth, construction had begun on a massive station, Unity. Designed as a neutral ground for all species, it would serve as the headquarters for the newly formed Galactic Concord. Representatives from hundreds of worlds worked tirelessly to draft laws and treaties that would govern this new interstellar community. Admiral Elena Chen, appointed as humanity's first representative to the Concord, stood in Unity's observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Lieutenant Raj Patel, now Captain Patel, joined her. "Quite a view, isn't it?" Raj remarked, his voice tinged with awe. Elena nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "We've come so far, Raj, farther than I ever thought possible. But our journey is far from over." "The Nexus Drive technology?" Raj asked, knowing the weight this question carried. Elena sighed. "We can't put the genie back in the bottle, but we can learn from our mistakes. The Concord has agreed to strict regulations on its use. We'll explore the stars, yes, but with caution and respect for the forces we're dealing with." As they spoke, a ship emerged from the shipyards near Mars. The Phoenix Eye. Sleeker, safer, but still bearing the revolutionary technology that had saved humanity. It would serve as the flagship for a new fleet of exploration vessels, tasked with mapping the changed galaxy and offering aid to worlds still recovering from Zarkai rule. "There's so much we don't understand," Elena mused. "About the universe, about ourselves. The war showed us the best and worst of what we're capable of. Now we have a chance to define who we want to be as a species, as part of this galactic community." Raj nodded solemnly. "It won't be easy. There are still threats out there, and the scars of war don't heal overnight." "No," Elena agreed, "but for the first time in a long time, we have hope. Real hope, and not just for humanity, but for all sentient life." As they watched, more ships arrived at Unity, vessels of every shape and size, carrying diplomats and scientists, traders and explorers. The station was a symbol of what could be achieved when beings from across the cosmos came together in common purpose. The galactic night was still dark, still filled with unknown dangers. But now, countless stars burned bright with possibility. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. They had learned the price of wielding cosmic forces and the value of unity in the face of overwhelming odds. As the Phoenix Eye prepared for its maiden voyage, as the Galactic Concord took its first tentative steps, as researchers worked to understand and heal the scars left by war, a new chapter in the history of the galaxy began. The age of isolation and fear was over. The dawn of exploration, cooperation, and shared destiny had arrived. Humanity, once confined to a single world, had taken its place among the stars. The future, with all its infinite possibilities, awaited.